Have you ever been in a relationship that's felt like an emotional roller coaster? At the beginning, you're being showered with praise, affection, and gifts, from good morning texts to lavish drinks and dinners, and then suddenly, to quote 21st century philosopher Katy Perry, they're hot and they're cold. They're yes and they're no. So what happened? Did you do something wrong? How did your love story dream become a nightmare? Well, what you may have experienced is something called love bombing. And if we take a closer look, we might start to notice that the TV and movie characters who we thought were so lovable and charming are actually doing this too. From self-identified nice guys like How I Met Your Mother's Ted Mosby to full-on bad guys like Chuck Bass from Gossip Girl and Joe Goldberg from You. But what is love bombing? What are the signs? How does it tie into narcissism? And why is this trope in so many TV shows and movies? If you're on social media at all, you've almost assuredly heard about love bombing in some capacity in recent years. But what does it really mean? As the name implies, love bombing is all about showering, or often smothering, someone with intense amounts of attention and affection in a short span of time in the hopes of getting them to fall in love with you.
Those two? Oh, that's easy.
It's us. In 30 years.
Love bombers are great at reading people so they can manipulate them and pretend to be their perfect dream person. To the victim, the love bomber at first comes across as exactly what they've been waiting for. Someone who always seems to say and do the right things. And this makes them want to commit. But once this dissipates and the victim tries to express that, they get gaslit into thinking nothing's wrong. And if it is, it's something they did. The abuser isn't falling in love with them, but a controllable, idealized version of them. And when that victim slips up and shows any part of their humanity, we get into the conflict phase. And this doesn't just happen in relationships between two people. It can even happen in groups, as we often see in cults, at first appearing loving to pull people into their ranks and then becoming hostile if anyone dares to step out of line. A relationship with a love bomber feels like fast food. The beginning is blissful and addictive, and by the end, you're just feeling sick. Because love bombing is a cycle that begins with amazing shows of love and care and ends with misery.
The cycle of abuse has this honeymoon stage where everything is good, or in intense situations like in relationships with a narcissist, this is what we call the love bombing stage.
After this stage, the perpetrator might begin to show their more controlling side, and the mistreated spouse might finally consider leaving. But the manipulator will then work to rope them back in with more grand displays of affection, beginning the cycle all over again.
The love bombing stage is so intense that it causes this rush of hormones into our bodies that make us feel like the person's actually going to change this time and that we're actually going to get what we've finally been looking for.
Love bombing can tie into narcissism. Narcissists want their victims to get attached to them so they can exploit and control them. And love bombing is an easy way to do that.
It is actually threatening to them to know that you're not head over heels for them because they cannot control you as easily.
It's important to note that not all grand gestures are love bombing. When people are infatuated with each other, they often genuinely want to pick up on each other's hobbies, take them to special places, and spend a ton of time together. But when this is done with the explicit goal of controlling another person and not to genuinely love them, see their partner as a full human being, and be seen by them as a human being, that's where it becomes love bombing. Film and television are filled with examples of relationships that were, at the time, portrayed as romantic, but looking back, we start to realize that they're anything but. And in more recent years, movies and shows have started really digging into this trope to show how toxic and dangerous these kinds of relationships can be. Let's take a look at some of film and TV's most well-known love bombers across the scope to unpack what media has really been trying to show us with this trope. Let's take Chuck Bass, a textbook narcissist, as an example. As one of the richest high school boys on the Upper East Side, he obviously knows how to give lavish presents to the object of his inconsistent affection, Blair Waldorf, and dole out the cute, if cheesy, compliments on occasion.
Something this beautiful deserves to be seen on someone worthy of its beauty.
But underneath this exterior lies shady behavior. Remember that time he sold Blair for a hotel? And narcissism.
If we keep going, we'll both end up dead, and I like myself too much to let that happen.
Chuck wants Blair, but only to feel like he's in control of such a powerful young woman and to keep her from finding happiness with anyone else. Once Chuck and Blair started to get a fan following, the writers tried to give him a secret, good, sensitive side, essentially putting forth the idea that he's treated Blair the way he did because he loved her, which, no.
It's just a game. I hate to lose. You're free to go.
Chuck, why did you just do that?
Because because I love her.
It's exactly this kind of framing. The fact that they're treating you horribly is actually proof that they love you. Somehow, that has led to this type of toxic behavior being normalized by so much of society for so long. Even if he claims to love her, he's still mistreating her, stringing her along, and not letting her move on, all for his own ego. And while his abusive father's death makes him see this more clearly,
I've been pushing myself to prove him wrong and pushing you away.
it doesn't absolve him of any of his actions. It makes for a tragic story of people in the wrong emotional places at the wrong times. That's why it makes for such good television. But it's also tacitly saying that Blair deserves the treatment she's getting from him. Even though she can be one of the meanest girls in high school, no one deserves being picked up and put down like a broken doll. Gossip Girl was a show that was vilified by parents at the time because it showed teenagers getting up to some pretty bad behavior, which the creative team flipped into a very effective marketing strategy. But what it may have been silently teaching teenage girls is much more nefarious, that in order to have the highs of a relationship, the extravagant necklaces and dates and compliments, they must endure, and in fact, even deserve the lows. Joe from You might not have Chuck Bass's funds, but he takes love bombing to an extreme in a different way, becoming basically the murderous version of Gossip Girl's social ladder climbing lonely boy Dan Humphrey. At the beginning, Joe seems like a sweet bookseller, a salt-of-the-earth guy who's just unlucky in love. His constant voiceovers paint him as someone very intensely detail-oriented.
Based on your vibe, student. Your blouse is loose. You're not here to be ogled, but those bracelets, they jangle.
And sure, Joe comes on a little strong, but he does things that seem like a big deal for a boyfriend in New York City, including, gasp, go to IKEA with Beck. Though even then he begins to let slip that he's not really the nice guy he pretends to be.
Bedroom isn't big enough to fit a king.
You're right, it's two. How do you know that?
It's New York.
At first, the viewer, just like Beck, might see him in this romantic light, and maybe even justify some of his more concerning earlier actions, like stalking.
The next thing our little friend the internet gave me was your address.
Breaking into her home.
When we live together, your place won't be a pigsty. I'll clean for us.
And murdering her erstwhile boyfriends and manipulative friends, all under the guise of protection. Joe continuously monologues about how he's not like other guys, justifying his actions to himself and to the audience.
I'm not a bad person. She was going to ruin you. But you're safe now. Thanks to me.
But as these bad deeds are ratcheting up, Beck finds all the artifacts that Joe has stolen from her life, including dirty underwear, and they break up. Later, Joe finds out Beck had an affair with her therapist while she was with Joe, and turns on her. Though Beck never asked Joe to intervene in her life and doesn't even know the full extent of what he did to her, he acts put upon and plays the victim, a telltale sign of love bombing.
I've done nothing but dote on you. Support you.
I know.
You paint me out to be this monster, someone who could hurt people, who could do terrible things. But who is the monster here?
Joe loves the idea of Beck, a strong, beautiful woman who is a soulful writer and an artist, but he only loves her if he can control her. Control everything about the environment they live in, and if she swears total fealty to him. Given all of this, it's easy to understand why actor Penn Badgley seems concerned that some fans of the show are taking away the wrong message and think they're in love with Joe.
Have I mentioned that Joe is a murderer and he should not be trusted? Have I mentioned that?
The ultra-rich villain and the psychopath serial killer certainly make for good examples of the scariest parts of the love bombing trope, but there are other characters that are much more like people we'd encounter in our everyday lives that help showcase how this type of behavior has been normalized in the real world. Ted Mosby, from How I Met Your Mother, at first just seems like a hapless guy who is looking for love in all the wrong places.
It's like, okay, I'm ready. Where is she?
But after endless elevator meet-cutes and standing outside in the rain, every time leading to Ted proclaiming that this woman is the one and he must have her, we can start to see that Ted is actually nearly just as delusional and selfish as Joe Goldberg, only in a more societally acceptable and less murdery way. Ted wants to have a sweeping romance so badly that any woman who he can project onto will do, even if she disagrees.
She can't say it's not meant to be. It is meant to be, and you know why? Because I mean it to be.
He even uses some Joe Goldbergian tactics like stealing and deploying information so a woman will like him.
Summer Breeze is my guilty pleasure song. It's been stuck in my head ever since I heard it this weekend at brunch.
I love brunch.
And later, even stalks a lady.
And now, a very single and available Maggie Wilkes is on her way to this very spot. I sent a cab with a female driver so she'd have no other interaction with a man until she got to me.
Of course, How I Met Your Mother is a comedy, so all of his weird and creepy behavior is played for laughs. Just like you, Ted is narrating all the episodes, so we're trained to think his perspective is correct, even normal. Plus, he has his adorable friends all around him, confirming this narrative about himself.
The guy called Ted Mosby. The guy who's uncynical and sincere. I believe that deep down, you're still that guy. I am still that guy.
There's no better example than his treatment of Robin, who is, spoiler alert, not the titular mother, but is Ted's soulmate, or so only he thinks. He decides it's love at first sight, but Robin isn't feeling it.
He's just looking for something a little bit more serious than I am. I mean, the most I can handle right now is something casual.
He convinces Robin to come to a 72-hour party, only to eventually admit he's thrown it just for her.
I didn't throw this party to set you up with Carlos, or the one before that.
When he finally wears Robin down and she does agree to go out with him but runs late, he casts Robin aside and takes a girl he just met to the wedding instead. And even when they do start dating, Ted creates more and more diluted, over-the-top romantic gestures with too high stakes that ultimately push Robin away.
I need an answer.
If you want me to say yes right now, I can't do that.
Well, if it's not yes, then it's a no.
Only to then claim he loves her just to stroke his own ego.
How long have you been hung up on Robin? 8 years? And you're still killing yourself to fetch dumb little trinkets for her.
Regardless of if she actually returns his affections, or more importantly to him, returns them to Ted's satisfaction.
Just tell me. Do you love me?
No.
After all this repeated jerking around, romantic gesture to rejection and back over and over again, it becomes hard to swallow that this central couple of How I Met Your Mother was ever supposed to come across as romantic at all. So if love bombing is so terrible, often ruining the lives of the victims, why does this trope seem to pop up again and again on screen? Well, the intense and cyclical nature of love bombing lends itself naturally to television in particular. The beginning of a love bombing relationship, sure, feels like a movie. A woman getting swept off her feet by a man's words and actions, and the rest of the beats of this kind of relationship also follow the structure of a hero's journey. Basically, where a hero gets into a situation that changes them, like a new relationship, messes them up like a big fight in a relationship, and brings them to a low point. And then, after learning something about themselves and resolving the conflict, like stopping a victim from leaving by love bombing them again, returns home, which happens to look pretty similar to therapist Michelin Malouf's diagram of a love bombing relationship. So for a lengthy show like Gossip Girl that thrives on endless drama, it's easy to bring Blair and Chuck together via a grand gesture, have them break up, and then like magnets, fall back together again. So the cycle can continue. What this could unconsciously do for people who watch these shows is make them think that if they're not having these kinds of extreme highs and lows in a relationship, that their current one is too boring or that person isn't the one, when in actuality, their relationship might just be healthy. So it's great that media is starting to really showcase how incredibly toxic this kind of behavior is with shows like You, though it seems even murder isn't enough to scare everyone away. But on the whole, through both these kinds of obviously negative portrayals and more open, honest conversations about real-life love bombing happening on social media, more and more people are waking up to the reality about these relationships, and hopefully this will help people escape them before they get trapped too deep in the cycle.
You are him. You are the bad thing. You are the thing that you should have killed.
He's not like other guys. He's a nice guy.
Sorry, I'm not like a gross guy trying to hit on you or anything.
If we look at the nice guy on screen, we can break down the qualities that define him. He's a hopeless romantic.
I brought you these, and a poem I wrote for you.
The nice guy can be found obsessively pining after a girl, making grand gestures, or jumping way ahead in planning the future of a relationship.
I have found the future Mrs. Ted Mosby.
But much to his chagrin, he's often pegged as friend material instead of as a true boyfriend contender.
You waited too long to make your move, and now you're in the friend zone.
This obsessive lover boy lives in his head.
Well, you know, you're not always one to face things.
And frequently struggles to act on his feelings.
You could just ask her out.
Don't be stupid.
But the central irony of the nice guy is that he's not actually that nice.
Women never go for the nice guy.
please. Men say that, but you get to know some of these men who complain the most. You find out they're not as nice as they like to think they are.
He may be the polar opposite of the stereotypical male commitment phobe, but his supposed romantic streak is really just projecting a fantasy onto the woman he likes.
They do that thing where they put you on a pedestal and they dote on you even though you've never expressed any interest.
He talks about how girls go for the wrong type of guys.
He's gonna use your ass and throw you away.
But this rhetoric is usually just an empty cover for wishing he had the ladies' man's confidence and mojo.
Guarda tutte le cose belle.
And while he isn't intimidating or threatening on the surface, the unrequited love he's too scared to pursue can lead to a toxic buildup of resentment or bitterness.
I don't handle rejection well. Funny, considering all the practice I've had, huh?
The wisdom in our culture has long been that nice guys finish last. So how did we end up with a whole subgroup of male characters who are trying really hard to be seen as nice? Here's our take on the nice guy. What's behind his niceness, why he's his own worst enemy, and why, even if some of these guys are frauds, the real thing can still exist. The nice guy himself hasn't necessarily changed all that much over time, but in recent years, there have been huge shifts in the way viewers look at him. For most of history, the male character who relentlessly pursued his love object, regardless of whether she was sure about him, was portrayed as charming and sweet.
It's a pity you don't have as much charm as you have persistence.
But I have. You've only seen the aggressive side of me. What do you say? Come on.
All right, you win.
In Fred Astaire movies like Top Hat and The Gay Divorcee, the male lead's intense infatuation with and pursuit of a woman he doesn't know well is presented as normal because he's so in love.
Peekaboo. Stop this cab at once.
One of the most definitive examples of the nice guy trope is Ducky in 1986's Pretty in Pink.
He's a really nice guy.
He harbors an unrequited crush on his best friend Andy, and most of the time is an obnoxious pest, constantly badgering her for attention.
6:15, Duck Dale again. Call me, okay? Andy, where are you? This is the Duck. Give me a call, okay? It's 6:28.
Ducky consistently overlooks what Andy wants, instead thinking he knows what's best.
I won't take no for an answer.
Try, please.
When he finds out that she's interested in dating rich guy Blaine, he tries to shame her out of her crush.
You can't do this and respect yourself.
Well, I'll make that decision, all right?
So ultimately, Ducky's kindness is contingent on a woman living her life on his terms.
So when you get your heart splattered all over hell and you're feeling really low and dirty, don't look to me to help pump you back up, cause maybe for the first time in your life I won't be there.
But in spite of all this bad behavior, the original movie ending that writer John Hughes wanted brought Andy and Ducky together at the prom. Test audiences booed this conclusion, suggesting that our culture already had a lower tolerance for the nice guy than filmmakers may have thought.
Listen, may I admire you again today?
90s and 2000s shows featured nice guy characters pining for their dream woman, but struggling to express this in a healthy way. Take Brian Krakow on My So-Called Life. When he's jealous about Angela's relationship with dreamboat Jordan Catalano, he starts a spiteful rumor that the two had sex.
Her and Jordan at Brian's house. Oh my God. Can you believe it? Right in the front yard. Brian watched the entire thing through his kitchen window.
Ross Geller on Friends and Ted Mosby on How I Met Your Mother begin their respective series wanting to find the one as soon as possible.
I'm done being single.
I don't want to be single, okay? I just want to be married again.
Both men fixate on a woman they feel is perfect, developing an out-of-control infatuation even though she's not quite on the same page.
I don't want to get married right now, maybe ever.
After Ross wins his lobster, Rachel, things go sour when she starts establishing a new independent identity and career, leading him to act out in jealous, controlling ways.
Can't a guy send a barbershop quartet to his girlfriend's office anymore?
Yes, it was like you were marking your territory. I mean, you might as well have just come in and peed all around my desk.
When these shows were on the air, we were still meant to sympathize with Ross and Ted and root for them to get the girl. So in many of these cases, it's only in looking back that some viewers start to find the nice guy's behavior creepy.
If only I knew her schedule, I could arrange a chance encounter.
That's great, Ted. You'll be the most casual stalker ever.
More recently, though, our culture has turned on this character type, even coining the term nice guy syndrome to describe the wolf in sheep's clothing who performs niceness with ulterior motives.
You pretend to be nice, and that's worse.
It follows that modern nice guys on screen are viewed through a more critical, self-aware lens.
Everyone says he's a really nice guy.
Good point.
That's exactly the problem. Because he's so nice, people don't want to think he's capable of awful things, so they let him off the hook.
If you look back, you can find subtle critiques of the nice guy scattered throughout film history. In 1951's A Place in the Sun, our seemingly nice hero wants to be with Elizabeth Taylor's rich, beautiful Angela so badly that he plots to murder his poor pregnant girlfriend to get her out of the way.
And there was a moment when you might have saved her. Who were you thinking of just at that moment? And your heart was murdered, George.
In 1958's Vertigo, the apparently harmless Scotty, played by Jimmy Stewart, subverting his own nice guy persona, is so fixated on the idea of a perfect, non-existent woman that he obsessively controls an actual girlfriend.
The color of your hair.
Oh, no.
Judy, please, it can't matter to you.
And inadvertently causes her death. In 1965's Repulsion, an exploration of female fear of men, nice guy Colin aggressively pursues Carol, even though she doesn't engage with him.
Are you playing hard to get?
When she won't open her apartment door to see him, Colin breaks it down, justifying this threatening, violent behavior as an expression of his romantic passion.
Well, I had to see you, that's all.
But when it comes to our modern skepticism of the nice guy, the tide started to turn with 2009's 500 Days of Summer, which was meant to be a deconstruction of the trope. The story looks at how the idealistic Tom projects onto his dream girl Summer, ignoring all the times she tells him that she's not looking for love.
I just don't feel comfortable being anyone's girlfriend. I just don't want to release.
Well, you're not the only one that gets a say in this. I do too. And I say we're a couple. God damn it.
Director Mark Webb said, "The movie is very intentionally told from the perspective of the guy, and we wanted to identify his shortcomings. He wasn't observing the inner life of the Summer character. He projected on her. We think of that as romantic, but really it's just intellectual laziness."
It's Tom's fault. I think that if you really pay attention, Tom's not listening to Summer. When you hear something that doesn't fit into what you wanted to hear, you still have to update your thinking.
Still, the movie's intended message didn't stop many viewers from seeing Summer, who herself is a deconstruction of the manic pixie dream girl trope, as the villain who coldly breaks Tom's heart. This popular misreading reveals that, at the time 500 Days came out, culture was still biased in favor of the nice guy. That same year, Inglourious Basterds gave us Frederick Zoller, who presents himself as a polite, smitten suitor.
C'était un plaisir de discuter avec une consoeur cinéphile.
But the film subverts this because this guy is a literal Nazi who snaps when Shoshana turns him down one too many times.
Frédéric, vous m'avez fait mal.
Ma foi, ça fait plaisir de voir que vous pouvez ressentir quelque chose, même si c'est juste de la douleur physique.
Love Simon's antagonist Martin also sees himself as a nice guy, though no one else does. He cruelly blackmails Simon.
He told me that if I didn't help him get with Abby, he'd out me.
But when his romantic grand gesture for his crush Abby bombs, he does out Simon after all.
We should all probably be talking about this instead of Martin Addison's homecoming debacle, which was actually kind of sweet. And romantic if you think about it.
Netflix's You is the darkest subversion of the trope yet. Bookstore manager Joe creates a perfect nice guy image to win Beck.
I mean, you're a nice guy with your remarkable stuff.
But he's actually stalking her, tailoring his personality to what he knows about her, and killing off anyone who poses a threat to their relationship.
Everything I do to protect you, Beck.
2020's Promising Young Woman offers a full-on revenge fantasy in which vigilante Cassie targets fake nice guys she knows will try to take advantage of her.
I go to a club. I act like I'm too drunk to stand. And every week, a nice guy comes over to see if I'm okay.
You okay?
Thus, the movie's takeaway is similar to You. These men who tell themselves they're protecting a woman from the bad people out there are really the ones she needs protection from.
You are the bad thing. You are the thing that you should have killed.
I am a nice guy.
Are you?
Ultimately, the nice guy has evolved from the underdog romantic into the villain of our times.
I used to think it was something else. That you wanted me to be yours, that you wanted to possess me, but no, it's so much simpler than that. You hate yourself.
This shift in popular opinion is largely due to the Me Too movement and a growing awareness of the nuances of male entitlement. As Rebecca Pauley writes for Mashable, you used to be able to shrug aside the nice guy's more stalkery tendencies, so the media they appeared in told us, because they were just so damn harmless. What can a socially awkward nerd really do? The answer we now realize is a lot.
If it's creepy to use the internet, military satellites, and robot aircraft to find a house full of gorgeous young models so that I can drop in on them unexpectedly, then fine, I'm creepy.
I'm a nice guy. Because I'm telling you, if you say no, I'm going to be there every day at that coffee shop having breakfast until you say yes to me.
The nice guy is largely defined by his romantic side, but this character's infatuation frequently takes the woman's desires out of the equation.
I just don't think of you that way.
I'll try. I'll wait.
Romantics like Ross, Ted, Tom, and Ducky are so single-minded and sure they found their soulmates that they don't pause to consider whether their love object feels the same.
I'd like to marry her.
So ultimately, the nice guy needs to accept that you can't will someone into feeling what you feel.
You can love Andy, but that doesn't mean she's going to love you back. What I'm trying to say is you can't make it happen.
Downton Abbey offers one of the most interesting cases of this phenomenon. Daisy never feels anything remotely romantic for kind, gentle William, yet she's pressured into marrying him to make him happy.
You always said I wouldn't have to marry him when it came to it. Daisy, he's dying. What difference does it make?
Nice guy stories tend to send the troubling message that a man's relentless persistence will reward him with the woman in the end.
I mean, sometimes persistence pays off. I said yes eventually.
This is reflective of a culture where no is often interpreted to mean convince me.
What could she mean when she says no? I don't know. It is totally cryptic.
This is far from over.
On How I Met Your Mother, Ted's whole guiding philosophy is that you should never back off and move on, even when it's completely inappropriate, like when the woman you love is engaged to your friend.
And when you love someone, you don't stop, ever. Even when people roll their eyes or call you crazy, even then, especially then. You don't give up.
The nice guy is the kind of person who bemoans that chivalry is dead.
We're a couple of nice guys, which stopped being a desirable character trait about half a century ago.
But this passion for respecting women may not be all that it appears.
Sometimes I swear I'm the only real feminist you know.
I'm wearing this shirt and you won't even let me nut!
The nice guy often makes romance into a moral issue, so that if a girl doesn't like him, she must just not like being treated well.
She rejected romance, honesty, and respect.
He expects the woman to be interested in him because of his inner goodness, or because he's so in love with her. But this idea is hypocritical, because the nice guy is usually drawn to his crush at least in part out of physical attraction. He's not exactly looking around for an awkward girl on his level of the social hierarchy and falling for her just because of the intensity of her feelings. Finally, this character type often builds up a fantasy of his love interest that isn't representative of who she really is.
Well, I guess I'm no longer the virgin queen of Dawson Larry's handheld fantasies.
You emphasizes how the nice guy lives in his head through Joe's creepy narration.
A proposal. Why don't we spend the day together tomorrow? Just you and me.
The way his internal monologue refers to Beck as you makes it seem as if he's carrying on a conversation with her, except that, of course, she's not really a part of it. So in many of these cases, as in Vertigo's early subversion of the trope, the nice guy is in love with a phantom. And as soon as the woman shatters that illusion and asserts her individuality, it's no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Either she's an evil, emotionless, miserable human being, or she's a robot.
The nice guy may feel victimized by more confident men or beautiful women.
Why is it pretty girls think they can treat people like crap and get away with it? Centuries of reinforcement.
But the truth is that he is his own worst enemy. The character frequently dims his own light through self-sabotage.
You're deliberately flunking your courses so that you can stay in high school. You run yourself down. Why do you do that?
In the finale of My So-Called Life, Brian writes a romantic letter to Angela for Jordan to pass off as his own, Cyrano de Bergerac style, and she's blown away by its heartfelt contents.
It's
like the most incredible letter I've ever gotten.
Show creator Winnie Holzman said, "It wasn't the Brian that was walking around in life who wrote that letter. He went to this really deep place inside himself, and he wrote from there. That's what spoke to Angela." Holzman's words reveal how Brian has done himself a serious disservice by not showing Angela his true self before this point. Even then, he's hiding behind Jordan.
You're using him too, to express your true feelings towards Angela.
And when Angela directly confronts Brian to ask if he wrote the letter, and it's implied that she's developing feelings for him too, he still won't take credit for it.
And I have to know because...
Know what? There's nothing to know.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower makes a similar point in the way Charlie sells himself short by not pursuing his crush Sam.
Then why didn't you ever ask me out?
I just didn't think that you wanted that.
Well, what did you want?
On 13 Reasons Why, Clay never musters the courage to tell his classmate Hannah how he feels about her. The show implies that there's a chance it could have helped Hannah to know someone cared.
Why didn't you say this to me when I was alive?
Which gets at the point that it's not just himself the nice guy hurts by withdrawing.
You can't just sit there and put everybody's lives ahead of yours and think that counts as love.
And because he's not able to express himself, he may be lacking in emotional intelligence or empathy for those around him.
You don't understand, people crack out.
The nice guy has a tendency to take a passive role in his own life.
The pity thing? Not good. If you want crappy things to stop happening to you, then stop accepting crap and demand something more.
But by being so self-protective and risk-averse, he lets his feelings fester into self-loathing and ensures that he doesn't get any closer to what he really wants.
She probably wouldn't go out with me anyway, but how do I know that for sure if I don't ever ask?
So the nice guy needs to develop the courage to face the possibility that his feelings aren't reciprocated, and in confronting this fear, discover that he can survive rejection and move on.
If she laughs, she laughs, and if she doesn't love me, she doesn't love me, but if I don't find out.
In Pretty in Pink, once Ducky gets over his infatuation with Andy, we discover that this guy is genuinely sweet.
It looks stunning, really. It's breathtaking.
And encouraging his friend to follow her heart.
If you don't go to him now, I'm never gonna take you to another prom ever again, you hear me?
Makes Ducky feel good too. So what does a true nice guy look like in our modern world? And how does he differ from the faux nice guy? To All the Boys I've Loved Before's true nice guy, Peter Kavinsky, is that total unicorn who, besides possessing the expected love interest qualities of good looks and self-assurance, is unusually romantic and thoughtful.
I even packed his snacks. I asked Kitty where to find those yogurt drinks you like so much.
The Korean grocery store is all the way across town.
I know.
Rather than falling in love with an idea of Laura Jean, he takes the time to listen and get to know who she really is.
You're a good listener.
Peter respects his partner's desires and boundaries.
I don't want to rush you.
And he treats her not as the subject of his adoration, but as an active participant in the relationship.
No, you know what? If you want me to read that, then you need to give that to me.
On Parks and Recreation, real nice guy Ben Wyatt supports his partner's aspirations 100%.
I love how independent my wife is.
Championing her instead of trying to control or limit her out of fear she'll slip away from him.
Indiana native, supremely qualified, and she wrote that she wanted to be governor in her kindergarten dream journal.
These modern examples of true nice guys call back to authentic ones of the past too. Jimmy Stewart's George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life is the quintessential nice man audiences love because he cares about others, has a sense of community, and makes sacrifices to help people.
I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tide us over to the bank reopens. All right, Tom, how much do you need?
Tom Hanks has made a career of playing actual nice guys, and in movies like Splash, that coincided very naturally with getting the girl he loves. So really, it's always been great to be a nice guy, and it still is. What differentiates a real nice guy from the knockoff version is simply authenticity. The faux nice guy's grand gestures can come off as cringeworthy and even manipulative.
You'll receive Cliff's Notes versions of his thesis-length emails, listing the things he sees in you that no one else sees.
Or he may expect a prize for acting like a decent person.
I went to a lot of trouble to solve your dress problem, and I think I at least deserve to see it on you.
But while fake niceness abounds in our world, true kindness sets you apart like a diamond in the rough. And in the end, real nice guys finish first.
Are dating red flags romantic?
Of course not. But film and TV tend to romanticize totally terrible behavior, to the point that as viewers, we might find ourselves longing for an intense, crazy, unstable relationship like the ones we see on screen.
Just get in the car, Al. Get in the car, Al!
We might expect these portrayals to be more a thing of the past in today's more PC world, but a surprising number of the most popular contemporary shows and movies still end up featuring toxic romances in a fairly glamorous, appealing light. So why is that? For one thing, it's because they're entertaining. Red flags succeed in drawing viewers into these dramatic romances. They create conflict and interesting obstacles to structure the plot around, as the characters have to outgrow their various internal issues to find love. All of which makes sense in fiction, but off-screen,
We should be talking.
Like normal people.
Yeah. Is that so wrong?
Here's our take on some red flags that persistently get romanticized in modern media, but should probably send you running for the hills IRL.
Did you follow me?
I feel very protective of you.
So you followed me.
Cheating.
I have a fiance waiting for me at a hotel who's going to be crushed when he
So
finds
you
out
make
what I
love
did.
to me, and then you go back to your husband?
While this seems like an obvious turnoff, many on-screen romantic relationships actually begin with cheating. Emily in Paris's sexy neighbor Gabriel pursues a relationship with her even though he's already dating her friend Cammie. Grey's Anatomy's Derek Shepherd starts a relationship with Meredith while he's still married, and without telling her this pretty important detail.
I'm Addison Shepherd.
Shepherd?
And you must be the woman who's been screwing my husband.
This type of cheating is romanticized because protagonists like Meredith and Emily are portrayed as the one, and the guy is cheating in the pursuit of true love. But in real life, any guy or girl who starts a relationship by straying from his partner is showing that he's untrustworthy and could easily do the same thing to you. Not taking no for an answer is often portrayed on screen as persistence, a result of all-consuming love rather than harassment. Ryan Gosling's character Noah in The Notebook threatens to commit suicide to convince Allie to go out with him.
Will you? Or will you not go out with me? Goddamn, my hand slipper.
Okay, fine. I'll go out with you.
About Time's Tim uses his time-traveling abilities to redo every interaction he has with his love interest Mary in order to become her dream man, never revealing to her that he's basically tricked her into a relationship. 50 First Dates uses a similar premise to show Henry taking advantage of Lucy's memory impairment. And it's not always persistence on behalf of the men in heterosexual relationships. Carrie in Sex and the City is obsessed with Big, even though he proves time and time again throughout the series that he's a bad choice.
How many more times are you going to go through this? He is bad for you.
But the show promotes the idea that she can fundamentally change him just because she likes him enough. Presenting this persistence as true love can suggest that a person is entitled to a romantic relationship with the person of their choosing, and as many do-overs as they need, as long as they refuse to give up.
And when you love someone, you don't stop, ever. Even when people roll their eyes or call you crazy, even then, especially then.
Often, persistent people in romantic narratives refuse to take no for an answer because they've idealized the person in their head.
I can't even send back soup.
Well, that's because you're such a sweet, gentle,
When Ted meets Robin in How I Met Your Mother, he immediately declares how much he loves her. Understandably, because he barely knows her, this freaks Robin out. Idealizing a person so much early on in a relationship, despite being portrayed as flattering and romantic, is usually actually a sign that the person is infatuated with an idea of who they are rather than the person themselves. The half of it explores this problem more critically when Paul elicits Ellie's help to woo Aster, despite not really knowing anything about her or sharing her interests.
What do you like about Aster?
She's pretty.
This just leads to Ellie forming a connection with the real Aster, while Paul and Ellie also develop a real friendship through the time they spend together. Stalking. Edward from Twilight is famous for romanticizing this trait after he reveals to Bella that he breaks into her room every night to watch her sleep.
How did you get in here?
The window?
Do you do that a lot?
Just the past couple of months. I like watching you sleep.
In the movie, it's framed as proof of how much Edward loves her and that he just can't stay away from her. Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey follows Anna to another state after she goes to visit her mother.
It's Christian. He's here.
in Georgia.
While this kind of attention is presented as flattering, in reality, it's way over the line and potentially dangerous. Possessiveness.
The days of you controlling my life are over.
We'll see about that.
In the kissing booth too, Elle doesn't immediately reply to Noah's texts, so he phones her school pretending to be her dad. Christian constantly tells Anna she belongs to him and gets jealous when she interacts with other guys. He even tries to regulate whether or not she drinks.
You shouldn't get drunk like that. I'm all for testing the limits, but you put yourself at risk last night.
And in After, Hardin gets so jealous after another guy tries to kiss Tessa in a game that he starts a physical fight and drunkenly destroys his own house. This kind of behavior reveals a lot of anger and a tendency to treat women like possessions. But on screen, it's often seen as aspirational because it's proof of how deeply the guy cares. Secrecy. When a partner isn't disclosing their full self or is making you lie to your nearest and dearest, this is a sign that something is off. Christian has Anna sign a non-disclosure agreement, preventing her from telling her friends or family about their relationship.
It's a non-disclosure agreement. It means that you cannot discuss anything about us with anyone.
Sierra Burgess is a loser, romanticizes catfishing through having Jamie and Sierra end up together, which justifies this behavior, because Jamie may not have given Sierra a chance without first believing she was someone more conventionally pretty.
No, I mean, I get why you did it. I do. And honestly, had we not met the way that we had, maybe I wouldn't have noticed you.
Even Nick Young from Crazy Rich Asians, who seems like a great guy in general, totally hides his family's extraordinary wealth from his long-term girlfriend.
So your family is, like, rich?
We're comfortable.
Which, if you think about it, is not very healthy and leaves her completely unprepared to meet them. Age differences. While supernatural age differences are often explained away by the fact that everyone looks young.
How long have you been 17?
A while.
Romanticizing massive age gaps in romantic relationships, especially when one participant is a teenager, can make it feel like dating a much older partner is normal. In particular, student-teacher relationships are idealized. From Ezra and Arya in Pretty Little Liars, to Max and Rafa on The New Gossip Girl, to Archie and Miss Grundy in Riverdale.
Do you need me to drive you home?
It's the last place I want to be.
Hollywood focuses on the thrill and romance of this kind of forbidden love, but the reason these relationships have to be kept secret is that they're inappropriate or even illegal. Codependency. Edward would rather not live at all than live without Bella. It's an extreme devotion that's framed as symbolizing the truest kind of love, as if the pair's souls are intertwined. But it's also used to justify toxic and self-destructive behavior.
We can't be apart. You can't leave me.
Tessa moves in with Hardin after only dating him for a few weeks. These kinds of relationships also often exist in a vacuum. In both After and Twilight, the central couple spend so much time obsessed with each other that they don't have any time for platonic friendships.
I like my old friends.
Well, you never see him anymore.
But one of the most important parts of a healthy relationship is maintaining friendships outside of a romantic partner. Even relationships that are acknowledged to be messed up, like Maddie and Nate or Rue and Jules in Euphoria, still can come across as romantic in a twisted sense because they can't exist without each other. Drama. While it's true that every relationship will have its ups and downs, films and TV shows utilize constant relationship tumult to provide high-stakes entertainment. Edward and Bella dramatically break up in New Moon, only for Bella to save Edward from suicide at the end of the film.
He's going to the Volturi. He wants to die too.
High-octane drama makes for great entertainment, but having so much emotional volatility in a romantic relationship is actually a huge red flag. Bridgerton's first and second seasons are all about the thrill of watching two couples who think they hate each other realize the intensity of their true feelings, despite coming close to marrying others.
You are the bane of my existence and the object of all my desires.
So, why have these dating red flags persisted in modern media despite societal progress toward gender equality, mental health awareness, and personal wellness? When we watch films or TV, we're searching, above all else, for entertainment.
Look at us, we're already fighting.
Well, that's what we do. We fight.
Relationships that include these dating red flags are much more dramatic than stable partnerships, which may seem more boring precisely because they're healthy.
I don't want normal and easy and simple.
Love is not supposed to be painful or
devastating.
The lack of stability in these relationships is addictive for audiences because we're always waiting to see what will happen next. But in real life, couples who are always breaking up and making up usually have fundamental problems, and that's not a good foundation to build a lasting relationship upon.
You're abusive, psychopathic. Most of the time, I really hate the way you make me feel.
The problem is that if we watch too many of these romantic narratives, it might prime us to overlook or misinterpret red flags when we encounter them in real life. As Beck Oakes points out for Vogue, we've become so used to seeing unhealthy relationships on screen that we consider them normal, even aspirational.
You're mine. All mine. You understand?
We also may be more willing to tolerate or overlook these red flags because films and TV tell us that there's always a happy ending. Despite the numerous red flags that Big shows in the Sex and the City series, he and Carrie still end up together by the show's finale.
Carrie, you're the one.
And he eventually evolves into the ideal partner. As therapist Sally Baker writes, it gives this message of whatever you have to put up with and however many times you've been let down, frustrated, or heartbroken, if you can keep the goal in sight, you'll get your happy ending. Youth-oriented modern-day love stories, from Bella and Edward to Tessa and Hardin to Elle and Noah, also almost always end in happily ever after, implying that red flags don't really matter in the pursuit of true love.
All of this happened just because of, well, you know.
There may be some couples that prove it is worth working through the drama.
I know I am imperfect, but I will humble myself before you because I cannot imagine my life without you.
Normal People's love story between Marianne and Connell feels like an especially convincing portrayal of how young people often make romantic mistakes and hurt each other despite truly loving and wanting to be together.
You weren't really replying to my texts at the time, so...
Felt somewhat abandoned, Connell.
Yeah, I felt a bit abandoned myself, didn't I? You disappeared.
But more often than not, in real life, a relationship that's full of red flags will lead to heartbreak, not domestic bliss. Though we love the drama that dating red flags give our films and television shows, is there anything we can do to keep from glamorizing and romanticizing ultimately toxic behavior? In recent years, there have been better examples of relationships that still experience conflict but resolve it in a healthy way, and provide a model of how satisfying a romance based on trust and mutual respect can be. Randall and Beth in This Is Us show us an example of a healthy marriage where communication is a priority. Though they don't always agree, they're always honest with each other and willing to compromise. Bridgerton Season 2 has the same emphasis. While it takes Kate and Anthony a long time to admit their feelings, especially to themselves, the more emotionally wise people around them urge them repeatedly to be honest about what they really feel.
You must be honest with yourself. Because one way or another, these kind of feelings always have a way of coming to the surface.
And it's only when they finally brave that vulnerability and communication that they're rescued from their self-imposed suffering. Normal People also follows how Marianne and Connell finally escape their destructive cycle as they learn to more honestly communicate and take better care of themselves.
I'll go.
And I'll stay. And we'll be okay.
Jake Peralta and Amy Santiago from Brooklyn Nine-Nine start off as rivals, but ultimately find their way into a supportive, communicative relationship which makes both of them better people, without pressuring each other to change their fundamental values. And in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy, homebody Lara Jean is challenged by Peter to move outside her comfort zone in positive ways, like developing more of a social life and expressing her feelings to him.
If you want me to read that, then you need to give that to me.
They face internal and external obstacles to drive the plot, but none that send weird messages about the kind of appropriate expectations we should hold a potential partner to. Peter respects Lara Jean's boundaries around sex and makes sure she knows there is zero pressure to take their relationship faster than she's ready to. And in the final movie, the couple even go to college on opposite coasts, but their love remains strong because of the solid foundation they've built. That's true romance.
While we all love a good rom-com, in recent years we've also seen the resurgence of a genre on the other side of the coin, the romantic horror. They can be found within a number of subgenres, from psychological thrillers to dramas and beyond. These films take a look at love from a much less whimsical, much more terrifyingly realistic angle. That realism is frightening because nothing is more unsettling than a love story at the heart of a horror movie. From unrequited love to doomed relationships, anti-romcoms of the horror variety blend the two genres for the ultimate look at the dark side of love. So let's take a look at the rise of this hybrid genre, how it speaks to our very real fears of romance, how even our favorite non-horror rom-coms can sometimes be pretty scary in hindsight, and why we're so attracted to stories about love gone wrong. While it might feel ultra-modern, the overlap of romance and horror dates back to the 18th century with the Gothic romance genre. Characterized by atmospheric, haunting settings and brooding characters, these stories blend suspense and terror with the allure of falling in love and having a deep emotional connection with someone. For its time, this was considered a rebellious genre, one that pushed boundaries by exploring the blurred line between love and death, fear and desire.
And it was a way of expressing things about society in the 18th century that were repressed, which were sexuality and the fear of death.
Hallmark examples include Anne Radcliffe's A Sicilian Romance in 1790, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre in 1847, and Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca in 1938. These novels challenged societal norms, looking deeper into the complexities of human nature and the enticing notion of the supernatural and unknown.
It is a monstrous love, and it makes monsters of us all.
We can still find Gothic horror and romance in plenty of contemporary storytelling. Mike Flanagan's adaptation of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting on Hill House mostly focuses on familial love. The Cranes lose their matriarch and years later their sister Nell, a tragic character who also grieved the sudden loss of her husband. His follow-up, The Haunting of Bly Manor, had multiple doomed relationships: Danny and Jamie, Hannah and Owen, Peter and Rebecca, Henry and Charlotte, all of which ended in tragedy.
If you can't feel anything, then I'll feel everything for the both of us.
Supernatural romances between humans and vampires, werewolves, reanimated corpses, and zombies have seen different trends over the centuries, and the allure of seductive, mysterious creatures has stood the test of time. But for those looking for different kinds of stories, ones that still bridge the gap of horror and romance but comment on the perils of modern relationships, a new kind of genre blending is on the rise. No matter how much we love romantic comedies and dramas, when we look at them in retrospect, many have plots that sound like they could be horror movies. Since its release, Christmas rom-com Love Actually has been scrutinized for its casual depiction of stalking, infidelity, and questionable power dynamics. Beloved classic The Notebook, based on the Nicholas Sparks novel of the same name, captivated audiences when it came out in 2004 and continues to be a favorite among romance fans. But looking back, Noah's persistent pursuit of Allie, a girl who isn't interested in him, is pretty creepy. They only go on a first date because he threatens to end his life. Then they have an on-off romance for decades where they constantly fight. Stalking and harassment have been staples in several rom-coms and dramas, not to mention movies about manipulating people who have amnesia, and even though it's perfectly fine to still love them, their romanization of predatory behavior is finally being called out.
I mean, if you just turn off the sappy music and turn on like a David Fincher score, romantic comedies are stalker movies. Romantic comedy behavior in real life is criminal.
Author Caroline Kepnes's novel series You and the TV series digs into the psychology of bookstore owner Joe Goldberg, a self-described romantic who stalks women in the name of love. Even when he found someone who had similar killer instincts and obsessive tendencies, he was so repulsed by her behavior that he couldn't love her or let himself love a monster. But his relentlessness and deep devotion to his targets comes off attractive to some viewers who find the lengths he'll go to protect someone to be romantic.
There's not a line in the world that I wouldn't cross for you.
I didn't ask you to swoop in for me.
You did. Your life was a mess.
Yes, but it was my life.
With modern audiences being more genre-savvy, horror anti-romcoms like to lure us in with familiar tropes: meet-cutes, grand gestures, love triangles, enemies to lovers, and play on our expectations. They tap into our very real fears when it comes to dating. There's always the chance that nice guy is actually a serial killer. In Fresh, Noah has a standard meet-cute with Steve, a charming surgeon who appears to be similarly disillusioned with dating. He does everything right, taking her on dates and not pressuring her into sex. She feels they have a real connection, and when he suggests a romantic getaway, she accepts. Her friend Molly sees the red flags right away. He has no social media presence and wants to whisk her away to a surprise destination. But these days, someone not chronically online who seemingly likes old-fashioned romance can seem appealing. Those red flags, however, turned out to be telling. Noah wakes up in restraints, and the horrifying reality of the situation hits her.
No, this isn't happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
This isn't happening. This isn't happening.
Yes, it is.
Please, please, please. This is a joke.
Instead of being a love story, Fresh is a horror story that highlights the strong relationship between friends, as Molly puts herself in harm's way to try to save her friend. Rejection is another catalyst in horror anti-romcoms, showing how obsession and unrequited love can lead to terrifying scenarios. Unfortunately, there are plenty of real-life examples of this phenomenon, since women and girls responding negatively to unwanted advances can often put them in a vulnerable, dangerous situation. The 1996 thriller Fear takes the intensity of young love, or lust, to a sinister level. Teenager Nicole, played by Reese Witherspoon before her days as a rom-com heroine, meets and falls for David, who quickly makes a bad impression with her father by keeping her out late and becoming increasingly possessive. The plot unfolds into what some critics considered outlandish territory, but David's violent actions, attacking Nicole's male classmate and assaulting her friend Margot, among other things, aren't that far-fetched.
We have something that everybody wants, but nobody has. You can't let them take that away from us, Nicole.
Movies often explore the other end of the spectrum as well. Fatal Attraction is a prime example of an unhinged woman refusing rejection and going to extreme lengths to either force a relationship or seek revenge. The titular character in Pearl dreams of becoming a star, someone loved by all. When she brings the handsome projectionist she slept with back to her home, he is almost immediately put off by her behavior. But as he tries to gently, if abruptly, let her down, she flies into a rage.
Why are you leaving me? If I didn't do anything wrong, I don't understand. I thought you liked me!
I do like you, I just...
Tell me the truth!
You're scaring me, Pearl.
And as we see in other parts of the movie, people who even indirectly get in the way of Pearl's happiness don't survive. Aussie horror flick The Loved Ones is one of the most recent and brutal examples of rejection taken to the extreme. Often described as prom night meets Hostel, the film sees high schooler Lola Stone as she asks Brent to prom. Already planning to go with his girlfriend, he politely declines. Later, he's knocked out and kidnapped by Lola and her equally creepy father, who tie him up in their home that's decorated so they can have their own twisted night to remember. We learn that he is just the latest victim of the depraved father-daughter duo. Brent, who's already traumatized and contemplated taking his own life, is tortured and nearly lobotomized. He manages to eventually break free, attack his sadistic captors, and get home to his mom and girlfriend. While incredibly brutal, the movie still has heart. Brent's love for them motivates him to survive. Even after the initial dating phase, entering a new relationship is as exciting as it is terrifying. You're surrendering your heart to someone and trusting them not to hurt you emotionally or physically. But horror anti-romcoms pose the question, how well can you ever really know someone? In Get Out, Chris Washington finds out his girlfriend and her family are more than just wealthy. They're in the business of kidnapping black people, auctioning off their bodies, and implanting the brains into white people who desire their traits and talents. Rose and Chris's relationship was all a big lie. He was merely her project intended for a sadistic legacy.
You know I can't give you the keys, right, babe? You were one of my favorites.
These types of betrayals are at the center of many modern horror and good-for-her movies like Ready or Not, which sees a new bride discovering that the family she just married into is way more messed up than she thought. Adhering to the La Doma's tradition of playing games with new family members, Grace draws the hide-and-seek card. But their version of the game has deadly consequences, all of which her brand new husband was well aware of beforehand. Our final girl survives the carnage, watches the family literally explode for not sacrificing her by dawn, and has the satisfaction of throwing the ring in Alex's face before he perishes.
Alex.
Yeah.
Erin in You're Next has a somewhat similar experience when she visits her boyfriend Crispian's family. He and his siblings plan to kill their parents and inherit their money. But the plan goes south because just like Erin didn't know she was dating someone who could do this, Crispian didn't know his girlfriend was a badass survivalist who'd take down everyone.
Had you reacted normally, my parents and siblings would have been killed. You'd have been untouched, and we'd be rich.
She may not have a wedding ring to throw, but she had a knife. Breakups are at the center of many a rom-com. Either the couple gets back together, or they find someone who's a better match. Or better yet, they embrace being single. But in horror, the end of a relationship takes on a different level of heartache. While writing Midsommar, Ari Aster was recovering from a bad breakup and set out to make a movie that captured the catastrophic feeling.
I think if there is any legacy for the film, I would love for it to be a movie that people go to when they're going through a breakup.
Even in just the first few minutes, we realize Danny and Christian should have ended their unhealthy relationship a long time ago. But after the shocking deaths of her parents and sister, the couple decides to stay together. Christian continues being emotionally abusive and distant, while Danny's codependence and recent trauma keep her from letting go. When they go to Sweden with his friends, they are each ensnared by the Harga cult, and their relationship ends with her smiling as he dies a fiery death. Whether they're being chased by silent slashers or nocturnally tortured by dream demons, it's always satisfying to see final girls triumph in the face of evil. When it comes to the protagonists in anti-romcoms, they're trying to survive the violent wrath of boyfriends, spouses, or stalkers they don't even know exist or sometimes can't even see. 2020's The Invisible Man put a new spin on the original Universal horror classic, centering the story on a woman escaping an abusive relationship. In the opening scene, Cecilia flees the home she shares with her boyfriend, Adrian, but even when she's seemingly safe and out of his grasp, he stages his death and begins terrorizing her while going undetected in an invisible bodysuit he engineered. While it's incredibly frustrating to watch her family and friends question her sanity instead of believing her, thankfully she comes out victorious in the end, killing Adrian with his own creation. Being trapped in a controlling relationship is a legitimate, understandable fear, and seeing women take back control of their lives and sense of self will forever be cathartic.
The days of you controlling me are over.
Anti-romcoms and horror in general may not necessarily be the most respected genres, but there's no doubt audiences crave these stories of terror and romance. Just look at the projects premiering in 2025. Companion is about a robot gaining autonomy over her boyfriend/creator. Heart Eyes, a Valentine's Day slasher that sees two young people falling in love as they outrun a killer. And Drop, a quintessential anti-romcom about the dangers of dating apps. Of course, there are thrillers and horror movies that do have light outshining darkness, the power of genuine love prevailing despite the odds. Still, there's a relief knowing that it's okay to admit that sometimes we're terrified of love, and that doesn't make us crazy. With You's fourth season, the stalker has become the stalked. The season has begun with a lot of the hallmarks of the previous 3 seasons, Joe Goldberg assuming a new identity and trying to hide in plain sight, while insisting he has left his murderous ways behind him. But this time, it feels like the target is on his back from the very start. And part of this is because this is one social group he can't blend into. It's one thing trying to be a Brooklyn hipster, or a clean living LA type, or a suburban dad, but with the English upper class, if you're not born into it, you'll soon get found out.
Found someone new to bully, have you?
Oh, come on. If he can't take it, he really is a worthless bag of mush.
Here's our take on You's 4th season, how Joe's new European surroundings becomes its sharpest ever critique of class, and how the show keeps getting us to empathize with this serial killer. Spoilers for the first half of season 4 ahead. So where does the mid-season finale leave off? After Joe plays Sherlock for the first 4 episodes, the Eat the Rich killer unveils himself to be Reese Montrose. It's an attempt to bring Joe onto his side and pin the murders on the masochistic Roald, who for a minute did look like he was about to murder Joe. Of course, because Joe doesn't take the bait and does escape from the burning building, now he's in a bigger bind than ever, with the real killer about to run for the mayor of London while simultaneously framing him.
If you're clever enough to get yourself free, I'll see you back in London and we can revisit this.
The choice of Reese as the killer is significant because he has experience of both elite privilege and a hard Scrabble upbringing. At its core, You has always been about class. Joe Goldberg is the poor kid who's been able to use his obvious intellect as a way to blend in with people whose lives are very different to his. And for the most part, it's worked. But here, the gap is so wide that it's impossible for him to even attempt such a transformation.
Where's your family from?
All over.
loving the whole off-the-rack vibe.
And this dividing line is played out in reactions to the season's murders themselves. The Eat the Rich Killer moniker is coupled with the scenes of young students holding placards and marching through the streets. All of a sudden, there's a spirit of vigilantism being stirred up, with scenes evoking films like V for Vendetta, all of which is buoyed by the fact that each of the rich elites Joe finds himself mixed up with is uniquely awful, completely divorced from reality, and, in the case of American expat Adam Pratt, deriving fetishistic pleasure from the gulf in class.
It's about the person being beneath me. But then, at this moment,
Above you.
With Season 4's focus on the rich elite, it carries on from where the previous seasons left off, and it also builds on a bigger discussion we're seeing in much of today's most thought-provoking film and TV. From Eat the Rich satires like The Menu and Triangle of Sadness, to shows that give us a glimpse into rich people's dirty business like Succession and White Lotus, to mysteries that turn the tables on the rich like Glass Onion and the first Knives Out.
This rich people shit is weird.
In the middle of Yu's take on this anti-elite discussion is Kate Galvin, and really it's through her that you get one of the biggest indictments of that class, where all the other rich characters are pretty unlikable, with perhaps the exception of Lady Phoebe, who just seems kinda naive. Kate is presented as more complex. She's the only one we see who feels uncomfortable with her privilege and scathing of the place it comes from.
My father is the worst man alive, and I'm his favorite daughter.
And through her, we also see the sometimes damaging effect that being born into this class can have on who you become. Everyone else's empathy deficit manifests in spoiled entitlement and the belittlement of anyone around them who isn't at their social level. For Kate, it manifests in a deep disconnect from herself, and not a belittlement of others, but an innate suspicion of them and of their motives.
Why would you even care?
What if I just do?
It's an important trick because not only does it support the show's central critique of the upper class, but it also shows how even its own members can be victims. Kate is steely, stoic, and tough, but ironically, this is what makes her vulnerable, because she's aware of it. Her upbringing may have been privileged, but it was also traumatic, and she's still working through that.
When I was young, my mother forbade me from crying, hide all feeling. It became default.
So how does the killer Rhys Montrose fit into all this? Is his grab for power at the end of the 5th episode signaling that he's going to try and upend society and take the rich down once and for all? Or has that power already begun to corrupt him? And now that Joe knows who the killer is, does that put an even bigger target on his back? The biggest shift in this season of You is its move into whodunit territory, and given the location, this kinda makes sense. All of a sudden, Joe is bolt-holed in a bougie London apartment, not too dissimilar or too far away from 221B Baker Street. He's grown his hair to a Benedict Cumberbatch-esque level, and is studying the works of Agatha Christie to try and give himself an edge on who the killer is, and why he wants to frame him.
It is a formula, but the formula is fun. It draws you in, it hides the social commentary under the puzzle.
So beyond class, what is the other social commentary that You is hiding? The show has always engaged with the contemporary explosion of the true crime genre. When it first came out, Penn Badgley was all over Twitter insisting people stop thirsting over his psychopathic stalker. But that in itself acted as a commentary on the fascination people had, and still have, with serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, who are often presented by true crime as these brooding, tortured, charismatic individuals.
I find it absurd to ask for mercy for something that I did not do.
But here, You is coming at the genre from a different angle and offering an important critique. True crime has turned us all into amateur sleuths, and arguably is one of the contributing factors in the revival of the murder mystery genre. Films like Knives Out and Glass Onion, remakes of Christie classics like Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express, as well as series like The After Party and Search Party, all follow a formula that Joe is trying to get underneath the hood of here. But despite him having all the tools, he keeps going down blind alleys and taking us with him as he fails.
Nadia was right. The first suspect is usually the second victim. So much for my one-off murder theory.
So the season is performing a delicate, skillful balancing act. On the one hand, it's playing with all the conventions of the whodunit genre, even sending all the suspects off to a big secluded mansion in the woods where you know something bad is going to happen. On the other, it's showing the problem of trying to apply these literary tropes to real-life situations, as we are so often guilty of doing when watching unsolved murder documentaries. Joe doesn't figure out that Reese is the killer. Reese reveals it himself.
Hello, Joe.
And since Reese is made into an ally of sorts for Joe, a fellow outsider, fellow literary enthusiast, and potentially a fellow psychopath, for the first time in the show we aren't sure who is controlling the narrative. Joe might be the one telling the story, but whose story is he telling?
You want me?
To kill Rold, yes. So you kill him and I'll take care of all the other touches that will make the story sing.
One thing that maybe goes unmentioned about Joe's serial killer tendencies in You is the fact that, well, he's not that good at it. He's sloppy, he leaves trails behind him, and for all his talk about his skills as someone who watches and observes, he's not a great planner, and here, all those loose ends are still hanging over him.
It was tough, but I did it. Hello, Joe.
The biggest one is the reason he's in Europe in the first place, Marianne. It was Marianne who took him first to Paris and then to London as he tried to find her and carry on the relationship they had begun in Madrid. He talks about wanting to leave that version of himself behind, but at the same time, when Marianne backs him into a corner, he's quick to lash out against her.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
You're right, you're not. I will use this.
Of course, he's put in a difficult position in regard to her. The Quinn family's hitman is the one who gives him his new identity and allows him to start a new life in London, but it's on the condition that Marion, the only one who still knows Joe is alive, is taken care of. Still, Joe can't. He lets her back on the train to Paris in what he imagines to be a final act of love.
I let you go to show you I'm not what you think. I'm not a killer.
But for us watching, it all seems too neat. Surely Marion is going to return at some point in the second half of the series, and surely the trick Joe tried to play on the man sent to kill him will come back to haunt him. And maybe this theme is one that will be revisited with Reese, too, because like Joe, the only thing we know about him is his own self-narrative, which he's already admitted to not being 100% accurate.
Would it help you to know that that part of the book is a lie?
He sold himself to the public as a poor boy done good who had an epiphany in prison, but we know he's violent, cunning, and psychopathic. So how much else from his origin story is he leaving out? His relationship to a duke is an offhand aside, but could he be the real power behind the throne? As far as cliffhangers go, the first half of Season 4's feels pretty treacherous. As we go into the second half, there is no character who isn't under threat.
I beg to differ with a murderer on the loose.
Joe could have his identity revealed at any minute. Marianne could be found out by an American hitman. Kate and her remaining rich friends are still targets for Reese, and Reese is surely a target for Joe. So even though the murder mystery has been solved, there remains a lot of mess, and no real way of knowing how it's all going to be cleaned up. That's the take. Click here to watch a video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And make sure to subscribe to our Patreon for exclusive new videos.